Hey everyone, today we're going to show you how to create a modern calendar view for your list on your SharePoint site. Up until now, there hasn't been a great way to display a modern calendar view on your SharePoint site of your list. What would happen is if you wanted to show your list as a calendar view, it would show up as the classic calendar view in an otherwise clean, modern-looking SharePoint site. In our previous video, we showed you a workaround where you could add an embedded web part and an iframe in order to show a modern calendar view on your site, but there are a lot of steps to that. It's tricky. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. So we are excited that Microsoft has released the modern calendar view directly in the list web part, and we're going to show you today how to create and configure that view to get it looking nice on your SharePoint site. Before we dive in, please give this video a thumbs up if you like this type of content, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be alerted when we upload new videos. Now we're going to get into showing you how to display a modern calendar view. And the first step of that is to create your list. I'm going to use Microsoft Lists, which I'll show you step by step. The other thing that you can do is create a new list through the site contents page of your SharePoint site. And that way it's already in there directly. In Microsoft Lists, just hit New Lists. I'm going to use the issue tracker template just for the sake of putting something together quickly here. Use the template, so you'll name it, add your description. So far, everything you're doing normally. Pick a color, choose a graphic, and then this Save To spot is the important step because you're going to want to save it to right here it shows my recent sites. You're going to want to save it to the SharePoint site that you're wanting to display it on later. So just make sure you do that in order to associate them correctly, and then your list will be an option to display on your SharePoint site. So I'm going to save it to Playbook. That's the site that I'm going to add this to. Show in site navigation is totally up to you. I'm going to unclick that for now and then go ahead and click Create. Okay, here is the list that I have some of it created already, that issue tracker list that I just created. The important thing when you're wanting to use a calendar view is that your list must have a date column. So really any list that you want to use is fine. Just make sure at least one of the columns has a date associated to it. So here's my finished list. The next step once you're done with your list is to create a calendar view. And to do that, you're going to go to All Items up here and then Create New View. Once you do that, go ahead and name the view. So I'm going to say Issue Tracker, which is the name of this list, Calendar. And then this Show As option is where you'll pick how you want it to display. I'm going to hit Calendar. Select the start date of the calendar. Now here, if you used multiple date columns, here's where you can designate which one is going to show. I'm going to select due date so that it includes, I only have due date column on this particular list, but that shows you the options. If you have multiple date column options, make this a public view. You will want to make sure that is checked. That way everyone who has access to the associated SharePoint site is going to have access to view your list. So I will make that a public view and go ahead and hit Create. So here is what my list looks like as a calendar view. And when I go back up to this top section here that shows all of my views, I now see this view that I just created as an option. So I can go back and forth, I can view it as a list, and I can view it as the calendar view that I just created. And this will be important later when we're putting it onto your SharePoint site and selecting how you want it to display. All right, so now we're going to jump over to the SharePoint site so that we can add and configure this web part. Here's the site that I'm going to add this to. Once you're in edit mode for the site, click this little plus sign just like you would any other time that you're adding a web part. And you're going to select List as your web part. For mine, it's in my frequently used. You might have to scroll down if you haven't used it recently, but go ahead and select List. Now here it says select a list to add to this page. Here's the list that I have created within this SharePoint site. So if you have multiple lists, you're going to be able to pick which one to display. Let's go with Issue Tracker, which I just created. And once I click that, here it displays very nicely exactly how I created it over in Microsoft Lists. It looks clean, it looks nice. Here it is in list form. So you can keep it this way. This is what we've been able to do so far. The next thing we need to do to see this as a calendar is select the view type. Now we're going to go to this all items section on the upper right hand corner of my list and select the calendar, change the view type essentially. So we're going to select the calendar view that we just created over in Microsoft List. So that's why it's important to create that view already. You can create views here. If you have a list that you're working off and you're adding it and just working in SharePoint, you can create the calendar view right here as well. You don't necessarily have to do it over in List. So I'm going to select my calendar view that I just created, and now there's my modern calendar view. This is what it looks like. You can see it's integrated perfectly into my site, but that's not the last step. There is one more step to make sure that this views correctly on your page. We can't just leave it as the calendar view. If I were to hit publish right now and go back to it, let me show you what that looks like. It's still showing just my list. So what you have to do is back in edit, we have to edit the actual, not only the view in the list web part. So I'm going to go back to edit my view, show the calendar view, but we have to edit it in the web part itself. So up here, we're going to hit the little pencil, the edit web part function. And now in this options section over here, we have to set the view as calendar in order for this to stick when you publish it. So there's my list. And in view is where I'm going to select that view again. So I'm going to select the issue tracker calendar view again that we have already created and already have displayed here. Then just make sure you hit apply. And now that that is saved, I can republish my page. And now it's showing exactly how I want to. So here I have the site that I just had, added my list, changed the view to calendar view, edited the web part, and now it's showing perfectly as a modern calendar view. There are some limitations to this view as it stands right now. There are some features and functionality that people are used to that were available in classic SharePoint. Number one, immediately that you see is that this is black and white. As soon as I switched it to my calendar view, it doesn't show in color the way that it does in lists. It takes the color away and everything's grayscale. The second thing is that it doesn't support recurring events. So if you're trying to show a recurring item, a recurring event, you will have to create it as separate items on the list. It also doesn't integrate with Outlook in either direction, so that can be frustrating for people that I can't get this calendar over to my Outlook. And finally, this calendar view doesn't support overlay. So if you wanted to see your list on the same calendar, multiple lists on the same calendar, that functionality is not possible at this time. So hopefully that was helpful. We think it's great to finally have this view in a clear, clean-cut way directly through the web part without having to do the workaround. So it's a step in the right direction. There are still some limitations, but we're excited about where this is going and how easy it is to use so far. If you have any questions, please leave those down in the comments below. We will get back to you. Sometimes comments and questions become a little in-depth, in which case we do open office hours once a month, and we'll leave information on that in our description box down below. You're welcome to attend office hours and ask a question that might require more in-depth response. We also have a full learning center on our website. We will leave a link in the description box below. There's lots of great content there. Thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.